Good morning. I hope you're loving your life this morning. I am thinking about the title, which Mark just shared, and it's interesting that since it came to me quite a while ago, I've been thinking how understanding how God works through us is a bit of an overstatement because I only know on a good day how God works through me. And so I am not in charge of how God works through each and every one of your divinity. However, it is my genuine heart intention that by sharing with you freely how I have noticed that God works through me, that I might be a blessing and an inspiration. So we set that as our intention moving into the experience of this message together this morning. Often I have shared in this spiritual community how important it is that we work not just on our consciousness of God, but that we be aware of how important the subconscious is in determining how we experience life. And so all week, as I received this message for me about understanding more about how God works through me, I was reminded in very concrete ways of the 5 powerful movers of the subconscious mind. And they are beauty, music, strong words, strong emotion, and repetition of all 4 of those. And so I will repeat those now, that the subconscious is primarily moved by beauty, music, strong emotion, strong words, and repetition of all 4 of those. And so, interestingly enough, to answer the question, how can I understand more about how God works through me? I was required to be more vigilant in noticing all week how exactly God works through me. And of course, because what we expect, we invite, and because what we truly invite, we will receive. I was very blessed all week to receive a song that has inspired me for this morning. The beauty of my gardens this year. So there's 2 of them. Music, beauty. Yesterday, within an hour, I was reminded of the power of strong emotions when I received 2 different calls, one from one of my dearest friends celebrating answered prayer after a time that we have been holding that very, very loosely, and both of us surrendering it, taking it back, surrendering it, and prayer was answered in a most joyful way. A few moments later, I got a phone call from a colleague in Nebraska whose grandson was shot. And at 1:30 this morning, he made his transition. And so in that 1 hour, I was blessed with both and the yin and the yang, the world of appearances, the joy and the sorrow, the strong emotions that can be so polarized. And so in thinking about this, beauty, music, strong words, strong emotions, and the repetition of all of those things, I noticed that I understood that one of the ways that God works through me is bringing this song to me after the soil of my consciousness was tilled to receive whatever was mine to receive. And the beauty of this song is that I've never heard it. I still don't know anything about the writer or the artist. The title of it is The Evidence is Clear. The writer and performer is Josh Baldwin. It came across my car radio when I listen to a station that allows me to avoid stuff that I don't want in my consciousness. And so certainly I invite you to look up The Evidence by Josh Baldwin if you're interested in seeing the lyrics that have primarily inspired me this morning. But I'm going to share them with you and then share, well, at least I'll share two of the lyrics, because as is often the case for me with Christian music, I take the best and leave the rest. That might not be a match for my God consciousness at this time. And in listening to these two lyrics, I recognized the responsibility that each of us has for what we're seeing and how we're seeing. That is to say, the lens of perception and how clouded it is with judgment, as opposed to how clear it is with the wisdom of my God consciousness. So here's the two lyrics. They go like this. I see the evidence of your goodness all over my life. I see the evidence of your goodness all over my life. And the second verse goes like this. I see the evidence of your promises in fulfillment. I see the evidence of your goodness all over my life. I see the evidence of your promises in fulfillment. And so two things this called up for me in terms of their beauty, in terms of the amazing melody, in terms of the strong words and strong emotions, which I have been repeating in mind all week. I was drawn to these three scriptures. One is from Chronicles. One is from John. And another one is from Matthew. And so let me start with Chronicles, which speaks to seeing and vision. This is in Chronicles chapter 28, verse 9. And it says, and you, Solomon, my son, know everything that the Lord our God has commanded us. And you serve him with a perfect heart and with a willing mind. For the Lord knows everything that is in the heart and understands all the imaginings of the thoughts of men. If you seek him, he will be found by you. If you seek him, he will be found by you. If I seek him, he will be found by me. And so I sought the evidence of God's goodness all week in my life. I sought all week the evidence of God's promises fulfilled in my life. The second reading led me, interestingly enough, to the teachings of the Tao and to the primary metaphor, which will form a context for the rest of the message this morning. The primary metaphor coming from the Tao Jing and the Way. And it comes from Matthew chapter 5. And it is the section that reads, resist not evil. Resist not evil. The third scripture comes from the book of John, chapter 16, verse 33. And it reads, "These things I have said to you, says the Master, that in me you may have peace. In the world you will have tribulation." Hey folks, that too is a promise fulfilled. In the world you will have tribulation, but have courage. I have conquered the world. Have courage. I have conquered the world. And so knowing that the world of appearances was full of tribulation for the Master, as it often can seem to be for us, but notice that his promise is, I have overcome the world. And secondly, come follow me. You know what I love about that scripture that, where Jesus says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. The Aramaic word for the way, which the Master spoke in this excerpt, really needs to be understood in the Aramaic language, because the way does not mean way in the sense that we interpret it from an English connotation. The word way actually means road or pathway. There is, interestingly enough, no word in either Hebrew or Aramaic for the word religion. Isn't that interesting? And the word that is used means way or pathway, implying a way of living, a way of being, a way of life, not a religion or a doctrine or a set of beliefs set apart from the rest of life. So here, Jesus identifies with the Christ, with the divinity within him and within us, and calls that the way. And so Jesus, in terms of understanding of God that we're talking about this morning, seeking greater understanding of how good works through each and every one of us, Jesus lifts the God out of a personality of a super being somewhere in the clouds and reveals the true nature of God as a loving spirit, that dwells within each of us. What a powerful way to embrace understanding, which is the spiritual power that we embrace, celebrate, focus on, and practice during the month of July. It is one of the 12 powers, and understanding how God works through me, through each of us, is an important step in staying awake, in remaining vigilant to seeing the promises in fulfillment, in seeing the good everywhere in my life. And so with thoughts about the way, understood as Jesus saying, I am the road, I am the path, come follow what I did, and you too will inherit the kingdom. In the Tao, the word way is also used and is explained with a metaphor that I mentioned earlier. This metaphor is a river or a stream. And I invite you to ask yourself the question that I asked myself all week, and which I'll be asking throughout the month of July, which is, am I a rock or am I a leaf in the river? Am I a rock, a block, like a dam in the river, or am I a leaf? In the Tao philosophy, the way is like a stream because it holds the essence of life. as it goes from one state to another. Each of us beholds ourselves as a singular pebble in the cosmic flow of water, which appears to the eyes of the body as objective experience. And this experience moves through us, through our body, our soul, and our mind, and we can't hold it. We can't hold it, much in the same way that we cannot hold the water. We only feel it as it occurs. And so if we are the leaf floating, being moved by the water, instead of the dam or the rock firmly seeming to believe it can block the water, then we let go and we become part of the pathway, part of the way. And as we do this, as we become fluid with the pathway to peace, we get closer and closer to understanding how all of nature and all of life unfolds. The Tao interpreters say that we miss the mark the moment that we try to define the way, because in trying to define it or describe it or elaborate upon it, we cage it, we limit it in the same way that that river can be dammed or blocked with a big boulder. That is to say that once we have defined it, the understanding of it, which is what we're seeking this morning, the understanding of the way that Jesus invited us to, a greater understanding of this whole experience that we're having of life, with its yin and with its yang and with all of it. So once we define it, the understanding of it in its wholeness is lost, because we can no longer feel the flow of it past the resistance that we put up through, guess what? Through the power of the greatest gift that we've been given, which is the power of choice. Maybe you loved the lyric in the song that Jackie played for us. I take charge of my thoughts and feelings, 100% responsible for them. You know, the dam or the rock represents the resistance, and we have in the words of the master teacher, resist not evil, for in the world you will have tribulations, but I have overcome the world. Come, follow me in the roadway, in the path of non-resistance. Why do we resist stuff? You know, I've noticed that anything that I resist is a result at base of fear. We resist anything that we have given power or assigned greater value to than our spiritual well-being. Have you noticed? And so when I'm resisting what I would call evil, I know that I am giving it greater value than the only thing that really matters, which is my earthly assignment to express the love, the joy, the peace, and the wisdom of spirit that is my true identity. We resist that which we hate, and yet notice how it becomes a power of our own choosing. We have imbued it. We have endowed it. We have given it the power, not only of our free will, but also we have made it valuable in our thinking. And so the only way is through all of that. The only way is to understand more fully that it is our wholeness. It is the measure of the integrity that we have acquired until now. And by integrity, I mean the oneness that we live from in consciousness of our being one with Source, it is only there that we can float like a leaf on the river rather than become rock-like in our resistance to whatever it is that we have decided is more valuable. It may be the opinions of others. It may be the negative talk that we have toward ourselves. It may be any number of illusory rocks that show up on the river of life. And so I ask myself, moment by moment sometimes, am I being a rock, a stubborn rock, pushing up against the current, resisting the joy of life, the flow of life, or am I a leaf allowing the current of life to carry me and recognizing, yes, there is both joy and sorrow. Yes, there will be a young black man shot in Nebraska. And yes, that was the completion of his assignment. And yes, when we attach value to anything in the outer world, we have become like a rock, valuing and giving power to something outside of our God consciousness. And so my prayer this week throughout the receiving of this message was, let me be a gentle leaf that rides the flow of the way that is life. Calm, serene, joyful, 100% focused on celebrating the goodness that is everywhere in my life through Spirit. I think about the three attributes of God that I understand inform how I wish to experience life. And as Charles Fillmore said, ask me tomorrow, because maybe by tomorrow I will have changed my mind. But when I become non-resistant, when I become one with both what I call good and what I call other, when I can embrace both from the place of my integrity within, from the place of my living the wholeness, the oneness in my God consciousness where my real self lives, then I notice that my life is informed with three qualities: moderation, humility, and compassion. Moderation, humility, and compassion. What do I do with moderation, humility, and compassion? I go back then to Josh Baldwin's song, I see the evidence of your goodness all over my life. Yes, I do, because I have decided that the way, the path, the roadmap back to the oneness within me can only be embraced by calling it all good. And we have that too in Scripture. That was one of my earliest healing scriptures from 1 James verses 2-3. My brothers, whatsoever trials and tribulations you may have, call it all good. Call it all good. And so in working on whatever residual resistance, false belief, false values, negative thinking may arise in my mind, body, or spirit from the subconscious of my humanity, then I call to mind the words of that song. I see the evidence of your goodness all over my life. Not in one place, not in the places that the ego would judge good, bad, better, best, wrong, right. Oh no, I see the evidence of God's goodness all over my life. And I see the evidence of your promises in fulfillment. Yes, there will be trials. And yes, I can choose the way. Yes, I can decide to be a leaf and not a rock. I can decide that in the world, though there will be tribulation, I can overcome the world, meaning I can shift my perceptions of where reality is and of what I truly, truly value. And so in closing this morning, I would just like to go back for a moment to Jesus's words about resist not evil. Notice that when we resist what is not real, it does have a way of persisting. I think about all the ways that, we have been given this teaching, especially in New Thought and in truth circles. That which you resist will persist. I remember my Anthony Robbins training, which was, look, folks, life is only 10% what happens, and it's 90% how you react or respond. And we, ladies and gentlemen, are always choosing between those two earthly paths of resisting or responding, reacting or reflecting. And so this morning, as we remember those 5 things that have the power to move the subconscious, we seek beauty. We notice strong emotions. We notice strong words. We allow ourselves to be immersed in the sounds of music that move us, lyrics that say, I see the goodness of God all over my life. I see promises in fulfillment. As I was thinking a lot about rocks and leaves, where I live, I get special glee in remembering that it was originally, this neighborhood was called Hebrew Heights. And for some reason, the Jewish community felt strongly that it was important not to put trash out front. And so my garbage goes in the alley. I went out into the alley yesterday and I found one of the most powerful images in nature, one of the loudest metaphors for what I choose to see in my life. I'm pretty sure that I never uprooted the weeds that are back there. They are so healthy and so abundant and so glorious in their splendor that since the last time I looked, they had not only grown to be over 6 feet tall, but they had taken over half of the alley and the whole length of my property. I cannot tell you the joy that I had in taking my clippers, and I was just fine pulling out the ones that would come out by the roots and clipping the 6-foot ones that had much harder stems that will have to wait for another time. And I thought, how much easier it is to nourish and to encourage and to water the beautiful flowers that give me joy, and how much more arduous it was to be out there sweating in the alley trying to remove these copious weeds that had essentially taken over the alley. And I noticed how stubborn some of them were more than others. I noticed some of them weaving their way through the fence. And I think about the power that is no respecter of man. The power that through my free will, I direct either to see the goodness of God all over my life or to get stuck in those copious, overwhelming, in some cases deeply rooted, in some cases just very shallow roots, all of them this beautiful, embellished reality that in the world, this truth that in the world, we will have tribulation, we will have trials, but we can see all of it in the gloriousness of the beauty of God in our lives. Twice this week in removing weeds. And I get kind of emotional. At the side of my house, in removing weeds, a cherry tree with fruit on it. Mind you, sour fruit, but cherries were revealed I did not know exist there. And then yesterday, in attacking, as I saw it, those weeds, I found raspberries, red, vibrant, sweet raspberries growing. So what if we agreed in this spiritual community this week that we are going to seek and find the raspberries? Hi, Lennox, I love you. What if we decided this week that we were going to see the goodness of God all over our lives, that we were going to see the promises in fulfillment? We can do that. Through the power of understanding, we can see that God works in and through us as music, as beauty, as strong emotion. Yes, the good and what we might call something other than good. We embrace all of it in the wholeness and the integrity of our oneness with the substance that underlies all of it. This is the truth, and I name and claim it for myself, and I invite you to do so as well. Let us breathe in the beauty of life. Let us know that there are raspberries that await us as we remove the weeds in faith, with courage, with strength, as we prepare for the rest of our time together this morning. We breathe in God, conscious of our oneness with Source. We give thanks for the opportunity to come together this way in the light and love of this spiritual community, open, receptive, responsive, and obedient to the indwelling spirit of love. Centered in an awareness of this divinity, we notice, proclaim, and celebrate the goodness of God everywhere in our lives. We notice and proclaim the promises and fulfillment. And we see ourselves as a leaf in the stream, in the leaf that floats and is carried and is allowed to just be in the way that is the way of life. Amen.